If you follow Manchester City's day-to-day affairs, you know that something is stirring behind the scenes. And we're not talking about baseless rumors. We're talking about concrete decisions, real changes to the squad, and a plan that seems to be executed with surgical precision by Pep Guardiola and the Citizens Board. In the midst of all this, one name stands out: Nico González. And the truth is, ever since his arrival, his fate seemed to follow a road with too many twists and turns. Nico, signed for $50 million, was seen by many as a gem, a modern midfielder, technically gifted, with refined game reading. Someone molded in Barcelona's DNA, but now wearing Manchester City's colors. The expectation was an immediate impact, especially after being compared to Rodri right after his debut against Newcastle. It was a public compliment from Guardiola that made the fans believe the club had found its own mini Rodri. But football, like life, doesn't always follow the perfect script. What began with promising excitement gradually faded into anonymous performances, timid displays, and a clear discomfort with the physical, high-paced nature of the Premier League. The adaptation never truly happened, at least not in the way the club had hoped. And this became even more evident between the lines of interviews and in the player's own behavior. In a statement made years earlier, while still playing for Barca, Nico was candid. His dream had always been to succeed at the Catalan club. Even when City had shown interest in him as a teenager, he chose to remain in La Masia, surrounded by friends like Ansu Fati and Eric Garcia. For Nico, Manchester City was never the destination. It was a path, a bridge. And perhaps now, he is ready to return to where he believes he truly belongs. Behind the scenes, everything indicates that the English club is preparing to open the exit door. Nico isn't resisting. On the contrary, he seems to be waiting for the moment. Offers have already surfaced. Clubs from Spain, Italy, and even Saudi Arabia are monitoring the situation. And a return to Camp Nou can't be ruled out. That childhood dream is still alive. City, being pragmatic, will likely attempt to recoup part of their investment. But one thing is nearly certain: the Nico era at the Etihad may end as quietly as it began. Meanwhile, on another front of the board, a Brazilian enters the picture. Wesley, a 20-year-old right-back from Flamengo, has caught the attention of both Everton and Manchester City. He even publicly expressed interest in playing under Guardiola. Conversations were held, expectations were raised. It seemed the young talent would arrive as a natural replacement for Kyle Walker, who left the club for Burnley. But the winds have shifted. City is now redirecting its efforts. Denzel Dumfries, Inter Milan's right-back and a starter for the Dutch national team, has emerged as the main target. And it's not hard to see why. With a release clause that can be triggered for just over $21 million until mid-July, Dumfries is a real bargain. International experience, physical strength, intensity, everything Guardiola needs for a grueling season ahead. This change in direction, of course, clears the way for Everton to act quickly. Wesley, initially tipped for City, may well end up on Merseyside. The Blue Club's $26 million bid appears to be ready. If confirmed, it'll be yet another Brazilian in the Premier League, this time with the chance to shine away from Manchester's spotlight, but with room to grow. As fans digest these developments, an old topic returns: the battle for Declan Rice. In 2023, City and Arsenal were locked in a backstage war to sign the English midfielder. Everyone knows how it ended. Rice chose London. He preferred Arsenal's project, and City swallowed the decision in silence. For now. Now some say the Manchester club is preparing a counterattack, and the name in question is Morgan Gibbs-White. The Nottingham Forest midfielder is versatile, creative, and produced respectable numbers. 7 goals and 10 assists last season. Gibbs-White had already been on City's radar in the past. And now, with Nico González seemingly on his way out, the door could open once more. Interestingly, Arsenal are also eyeing the young talent. This makes City's potential move even more strategic. It's not just about strengthening the squad. It's about preventing a direct rival from becoming stronger. It's a double play, the classic 2 birds with 1 stone. And with an estimated price tag of $70 million, it's a heavy investment, but one that could yield immediate technical and psychological returns. In fact, Pep already knows the player. He's spoken to him, and there are reports that even Gibbs-White's own teammates believe the move to the Etihad will happen. The profile fits perfectly with the Catalan coach's playing philosophy, and if the deal is completed, it could be the most elegant and painful response to Rice's past rejection. Meanwhile, City's defensive sector remains on alert. The right-back position, since Walker's departure, has become a problem. Rico Lewis is the natural option, but even he doesn't see himself as a right-back. Guardiola has even tried Matheus Nunes in that role. That says a lot about the club's urgency to find a solution. It's within this context that Tino Livramento of Newcastle emerged as an alternative, but the asking price, $80 million, quickly drove City away. Pep himself, known for seeking value for money, pulled back. And once again, Dumfries's name gained momentum. Compared even to Achraf Hakimi for his attacking output, the Dutchman has been receiving public praise. Hakimi himself said Dumfries is stronger in aerial duels, a statement that carries weight coming from such a player. The comparison between the two is inevitable. Dumfries plays in a more physically demanding league. He doesn't have PSG's stars around him. Even so, he delivers consistency, strength, and attacking presence. At Inter, operating in a three-center-back system, he had the freedom to push forward, and did so with intelligence. If there's someone who can take over City's right-back role without needing a long adaptation period, it's him. And so the question remains, is it worth paying $80 million for Livramento or securing Dumfries for under $22 million? The answer seems obvious, especially in a scenario where the club needs to strengthen other positions too. The market is hot, rivals are making moves, and City can't afford to waste time. Every decision taken now could determine what is won or lost in the years to come. What's clear is that the board is active, watching, calculating. Guardiola has a plan, and that plan no longer involves improvisation. Nico is on his way out, Dumfries is on the radar, Wesley may head to Everton, and Gibbs-White could be the answer the midfield needs. What's more, he might become the open wound Arsenal don't want to see turned into a dagger. The transfer saga is far from over. And as always, Manchester City won't be watching from the sidelines. They'll act, they'll strike. And once again, they'll try to show why they are the most feared team in the Premier League. The truth is, Manchester City doesn't have time for mistakes, and perhaps that's why every move in the market is being calculated with almost surgical precision. The club no longer wants to simply sign promising players. It wants players who are ready, players who step in and change the game, players who understand the weight of the shirt they wear. This explains why Nico González, despite his talent and impeccable training at La Masia, couldn't secure a place. He didn't fail because of a lack of quality. He failed because he wasn't ready for the demands City places on those who step onto the Etihad pitch. The club requires intensity, commitment, rapid adaptation, and above all, the personality not to shy away. And that is exactly what Pep Guardiola seems to be looking for in names like Dumfries and Gibbs-White, players with experience, yet still hungry to prove something. This mindset is also evident in how the club has been dealing with young talents. The case of Wesley is symbolic, a fullback with a European physique, good ball control, and solid tactical education in Brazilian football. But still, City hesitated. They chose not to rush. And why? Because perhaps Pep no longer wants the burden of developing players from scratch. Time is too short, and the pressure for titles, domestic and European, is far too intense. Denzel Dumfries, on the other hand, is a finished product. He doesn't need to learn how to play in a high line. He's done it before. He doesn't need to adapt to elite football. He's been part of it for years. And even though he's nearing 30, he offers something no other fullback in the current squad has: offensive presence with above-average physical power. At the same time, the club is also looking at the midfield with clinical focus. And with Nico's imminent departure, a gap will open that needs to be filled quickly, not just for tactical reasons, but to maintain the possession dynamics and territorial control that define City's playing style. That's where Morgan Gibbs-White becomes a strategic piece. His ability to play between the lines, move behind defensive midfielders, and carry the ball at pace makes him a perfect name for offensive rotation. And there's more. His energy, intensity in duels, and vision would be valuable weapons for a team that sometimes relies too heavily on individual brilliance from players like De Bruyne and Foden. Gibbs White offers variation. He offers oxygen. We must not forget that last season left important lessons. The departures of Mahrez and Gundogan created voids that weren't fully filled. Matheus Nunes is still searching for consistency. Kovacic arrived in good form, but he's not a conductor. And Bernardo Silva, as brilliant as he is, carries the fatigue of consecutive seasons at the highest level. The arrival of Gibbs White would not only refresh the midfield but also send a clear message. City is reinventing itself without losing its identity. But the club knows that in football, time is a rare currency, and perhaps that is the greatest urgency right now, to act before the rivals do. Arsenal, for example, already have Gibbs White on their list. And if there's one thing Guardiola doesn't want to see, it's the midfielder wearing red in London. In fact, the tension between City and Arsenal has been silently growing over the past 2 years. First, there was the battle for Gabriel Jesus, who chose the Gunners, then Zinchenko, and most recently, Rice. The Manchester club, even while dominant on the pitch, seems to carry a certain unease with the strategic growth of their rival, and Gibbs White could be the turning point in that narrative. Behind the scenes, Nottingham Forest is already expecting a bid, and everything will depend on Nico's official exit. Once he is transferred, the citizens are expected to act, quickly, with focus, because they know that hesitation at this moment could be costly. It could mean losing a crucial piece and simultaneously strengthening a direct rival. Meanwhile, in the corridors of the Etihad, another name is starting to gain traction, quietly but steadily: Nahuel Molina from Atletico Madrid. The Argentine right-back and World Cup champion is being watched as a plan B in case the deal for Dumfries doesn't progress. Molina is more defensive but tactically intelligent, strong in duels, and has international experience. He would be a more conservative choice, but still an effective one. And the list doesn't stop there. It appears City's scouting department is scouring the market for alternatives. This shows that, even with a star-studded squad, the club refuses to become complacent. It understands that every season starts from scratch, and that the line between success and failure might come down to the choice of one name, one profile, one fit. It's fascinating to observe how City has transformed its recruitment process over the years. Whereas it once sought out raw potential, now it prioritizes maturity and versatility. Being good is not enough. One must be useful in different contexts. And that's why players like Dumfries and Gibbs White are gaining traction. They don't just play well, they understand the game. They adapt, they're moldable, and above all, they want to win. Gradually, the puzzle is coming together. Nico's departure could trigger a chain reaction. It could bring in Gibbs White. It could see Dumfries donning sky blue. It could send Wesley to Everton, and perhaps create room for Molina. All of this in a matter of weeks. So, City fans, now is the time for maximum attention. Every headline, every interview, every move in the market could have a direct impact on what we'll see on the pitch next season. And if there's one thing Manchester City's recent history has taught us, it's that the greatest triumphs often begin in silence, behind the scenes, far from the spotlight, but as decisive as a goal in a final. While the spotlight is on potential arrivals like Dumfries and Gibbs White, Manchester City must also look inward. More precisely, at the players who may no longer have a place in Guardiola's new project. The truth is, every arrival implies a departure, and that raises a new question. Who else might be on borrowed time at the Etihad? Aside from Nico González, names like Calvin Phillips, Sergio Gomez, and even João Cancelo, currently on loan at Barcelona, are resurfacing in internal discussions. Guardiola wants a leaner, more competitive squad, and above all, one with greater commitment. There's no longer room for players who drift between starting and irrelevance. Calvin Phillips's case is the most emblematic. Signed as a sort of luxury backup for Rodri, he failed to establish himself. He had few opportunities and, when he did play, failed to show the assurance Guardiola demands. His name has been linked with clubs like West Ham, Aston Villa, and even Newcastle. It's likely that his agent is already in discussions with potential suitors behind the scenes. And for City, a well-executed sale means fuel for new signings. Sergio Gomez is another who seems to have missed the boat. Versatile, young, and technically gifted, the Spaniard was tested in several roles but never found his definitive place in the squad. With reinforcements set to arrive for the flanks, his staying becomes less and less viable. La Liga might be a natural destination. Valencia and Real Sociedad have already inquired about him. The transfer window is open, and City knows now is the ideal time to rebalance the squad. João Cancelo's situation is more complex. Technically, no one questions his talent, but the relationship with Guardiola deteriorated. His loan to Bayern was merely a trial. At Barcelona, he showed glimpses of his old self, but lacked consistency. The Catalan board doesn't seem willing to meet City's asking price, and if no firm offer arrives, the English club may have to seek another destination for the player. Internally, some believe a move to Saudi Arabia could solve the issue. A good offer, high wages, and a dignified conclusion to a cycle that has no return. All of this shows that Manchester City, despite being one of the most powerful clubs in the world, faces the same dilemma as any giant: to renew without losing essence, to reshape without destroying achievements, and above all, to make decisions that respect the balance between performance, dressing room harmony, and finances. In this context, Pep Guardiola's role becomes even more central. He is not just the coach, he is the architect, the mentor, the man behind every move on the board. His words, spoken in seemingly trivial interviews, contain clear messages for those who know how to listen. When he says that internal competition raises the level of the group, he is sending a message to the squad. If you relax, you lose your place. If you don't adapt, you're out. It was the same with Sterling, with Sané, with Gabriel Jesus. All talented, all essential at some point, but all expendable when the moment demanded it. And now, the same principle is being applied to Nico, to Phillips, and to all those who don't respond to the standards the club has set, a ruthless machine built to compete and win. At the same time, Guardiola knows he must keep the dressing room energized. He must bring in fresh blood, with hunger, with drive, with a winning mindset. Players who arrive and, instead of settling, challenge those already there. Gibbs White, for example, wouldn't come to sit on the bench. He'd come to compete, to earn his spot, to get minutes, and to push, in the best sense, those who have grown too comfortable. This is the new Manchester City, a club that doesn't just want to maintain hegemony, it wants to reinvent it. A club that knows past success guarantees nothing in the present, that understands every cycle ends, and that the secret is to recognize it before everyone else. That's why every name that emerges, every clue dropped by journalists close to the club, every silent negotiation, all of it is part of a bigger mechanism, a plan that looks beyond the next season, towards the next years. And what fans must understand is that, at this moment, City isn't just strengthening the squad, it's rewriting its identity. This is not about signing for the sake of it. It's about assembling a new mosaic, a new formation, a new way of winning, more dynamic, more aggressive, more complete. And in that light, new possibilities continue to emerge, still under observation. The name of Dani Olmo, for instance, has regained traction internally. Even with his contract renewed at RB Leipzig, he's a player Guardiola has followed since his youth at Barca. He's versatile, intelligent, and would be a technically top-tier addition. His release clause is still considered accessible for a club like City, and depending on how the market unfolds, he could appear as a surprise signing. Another name being quietly monitored is Bruno Guimaraes from Newcastle. While unlikely at this moment, the Magpies' financial situation could open doors for talks. Guardiola is a fan of Bruno's style, combative, technical, and capable of playing in several midfield roles. He would be an ideal rotation option for Rodri, or even a partner in physically demanding matches. All these moves point to one thing: City is not just reacting to the market, it is setting the tempo, watching, analyzing, waiting for the right moment, and then striking, silently, but decisively. And behind all of this, there's a quiet certainty at the Etihad. The Guardiola era may be entering its final act, and that is why every choice, every signing, every departure must make sense. He wants to leave at the top. He wants to leave a lasting legacy. And most of all, he wants to prepare the ground so the club stays strong, even without him. This is the most delicate phase of any empire, the transition. And Manchester City is living through it now, right before our eyes. And if you've made it this far, it's because you truly care about every detail involving Manchester City. And that's exactly the kind of supporter we want close. So, if this content kept you informed, held your attention from start to finish, or made you see the club from a new perspective, don't forget to leave a like. It shows you value this work and helps the channel grow stronger. And of course, if you're not yet subscribed, now is the time. Subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you receive every update about Manchester City firsthand, because here, the information comes complete, no fluff, and always with the behind the scenes you won't find elsewhere. See you in the next video. Until then, come on, City.